Welcome to the programme. There's been more fighting in the last pocket of anti-Taliban resistance in Afghanistan's Panjshir Valley, with both sides claiming advances. The National Resistance Front, made up of militias and former Afghan security force members, is the last group to hold out against Taliban rule. But the Taliban says the entire country is now under its control. Charles Stratford joins me now from Kabul. Morning, Charles. Conflicting stories, really, from both sides as to who has the upper hand.
That's right, Sohail. We saw last night, I suppose it was about half an hour, 40 minutes of celebratory gunfire in Kabul. It was very loud. I mean, you could actually say that it was a louder and longer celebration than we saw once the US troops finally left. And these were on the back of reports, seemingly by Taliban commanders, unnamed, 3 of them we understand, from that area, Panjshir Valley, that were saying that the Taliban had full control of the valley. Since then, those reports have been heavily refuted. We understand that there is ongoing fighting. This is a large area. It is heavily defended by the NRF, by these opposition forces. We understand that the Taliban have surrounded the area. We've known that, certainly according to the Taliban, for the last few days. But it was late last night when video was leaked out from the valley, purportedly sent to a journalist with the BBC. And that video shows the former vice president of Afghanistan, Amrullah Saleh, sitting in a room with books behind him saying, today is the 3rd of September and these reports about the Panjshir Valley having fallen are completely baseless, a total lie. He said that the resistance would continue. And saying that he was very much ensconced in the valley itself. It's very difficult to get any solid information from inside the valley because communications has been blocked by the Taliban. We were close to the entrance around about this time yesterday morning. The fighting was heavy when we arrived, and we spoke to a lot of civilians, a lot of terrified civilians in that area, and this is our report.
Smoke rises over the town of Gul-Bahar, the entrance to the Panjshir Valley in northeast Afghanistan. Neither the Soviets during the 1980s war nor the Taliban have ever managed to control this mountainous region around 100 kilometers north of Kabul. A shell lands nearby. Taliban fighters ready their weapons. Men in this village say they have driven their wives and children to safety. They are angry and scared.
The Americans betrayed us. President Ghani betrayed us too. You left us under the cannons and tanks, and we can't stop either side fighting. How much can they kill their brothers? How much can they kill their fellow Afghans? They have to stop fighting.
The Taliban drive American military vehicles and pickup trucks, taking fighters to and from the front line. Thousands of men like these across Afghanistan have known little else but conflict and war all their lives.
The
fighting started 3 days ago. Now we've taken a lot of areas up there, by the antenna. We have no issue with the civilians. We are here to defend their rights. People are staying in their homes.
The National Resistance Front of Afghanistan, or NRF, is believed to be several thousand strong and made up of mainly ethnic Tajik fighters and former Afghan army soldiers. The group is led by this man, Ahmad Massoud. He's British military academy trained and the son of Ahmad Shah Massoud, who fought against the Soviets and the Taliban and was assassinated by Al-Qaeda 2 days before the 9/11 attacks in 2001. Ahmad Massoud is demanding the Taliban form an inclusive government which guarantees the rights of all Afghanistan's ethnic minorities, including ethnic Tajiks, who make up around a quarter of the country's population. The fighting started after 2 weeks of negotiations with the Taliban collapsed.
We have a lot of equipment with ourselves. We will defend from our valley, from our territory until we have one drop of blood in our body. So we will resist until we martyr in here.
Taliban fighters edge up a slope along tracks they say are heavily mined. As we were getting ready to go live, another shell landed close by. The Taliban has blocked phone networks in the valley. There are growing fears about the estimated 150,000 people living inside and many in Taliban-controlled areas around Gulbahar.
The big concern is that Massoud's forces are coming round on the mountain ridges and trying to surround this area in order to isolate Gulbahar.
We left in Gulbahar, but now we are leaving. Today I came from Kabul to collect our belongings. I already took my family out. The fighting is ongoing. There are shells hitting people's homes. Both sides are shelling.
Afghan families flee for their lives in one of the last pockets of resistance to Taliban rule.
So there are also reports last night from Taliban commanders that a town called Biryan, which is just north of the Panjshir Valley, basically on the border of the next northern state, had been taken by the Taliban. Even that is impossible to concern. As I say, this area is incredibly isolated, very difficult to get to, and certainly the Taliban are telling us that all areas around it, a lot of them are heavily mined. What's got to be stressed, though, is that the NRF, this group that are fighting the Taliban in the valley, are heavily armed. We understand that they've been stockpiling weapons, some people are saying for actually decades. The weapons never stopped flowing into there after the end of the war with the Soviet Union. So we know they're heavily armed. We understand they could have up to, some reports of up to 10,000 fighters, but it's very difficult to get supplies in. So there are huge concerns now for the, as I say, around 150,000 people living in there. We understand the majority of them Tajiks. And also on a political level as well, it's very interesting because people are saying that although we've been waiting for this government to be announced, the formation of a new Taliban government, many people here are saying there's no way that a government can be announced if it's to be inclusive like the Taliban have promised it will be, when they're fighting what effectively is another war in the Panjshir Valley against a very significant ethnic minority. Tajiks are about a quarter of the population of this country. So this problem, this conflict has huge ramifications for a vast amount of civilians caught in the middle, and obviously the political stability of this country and the Taliban's efforts to, as they say, start again.
Charles Stratford there for us in Kabul. Thanks for the update, Charles. Now, US Secretary of State Antony Blinken says he'll travel to Qatar and Germany to visit diplomats and troops, as well as Afghans evacuated from Kabul. Now, he says the Taliban must honour its commitments if it wants relief from sanctions.
We have worked intensely across the international community to set a very clear international expectation of what the world is looking for from the Taliban when it comes to freedom of travel, now enshrined in, among other things, a UN Security Council resolution. That, by the way, is significant in a number of ways, one of which is that, as you know, the Taliban, among other things, is seeking sanctions relief, UN sanctions. It is seeking the ability for its leaders to travel freely, which, again, under UN sanctions, they currently cannot do, absent an exemption. And if a Taliban-led government is in violation of this latest Security Council resolution on freedom of travel, it's pretty hard to see how they would get, for example, that kind of relief.
In other news, the United States government could release some classified